In a daily struggle to take care of her sick mother, a young woman finds herself stuck in a tiring, low-paying job. A spoiled millionaire offers help in exchange for one night with her. She agrees, believing this sacrifice is her only way to save her mother. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching from. Stay tuned. The aroma of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls filled the small cafe as Olivia Mason wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that morning. Her auburn hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, and dark circles had formed under her hazel eyes from another sleepless night. The Bell Harbor Cafe wasn't much, but it was the only place in this small coastal Maine town that had offered her flexible hours. "Order up, Liv!" shouted Jerry, the cook who had been working there since before Olivia was born. She plastered on a smile and grabbed the plates, serving them to the elderly couple who came in every Tuesday at precisely 8:15 a.m. Her feet ached and her back was stiff, but she couldn't afford to take a break, not when every dollar counted. "You look exhausted, dear," Mrs. Patterson commented as Olivia refilled her coffee cup. "Is everything all right with Eleanor?" Olivia's smile faltered. Her mother's condition was no secret in a town as small as Bell Harbor. "She's hanging in there. The new medication seems to be helping with the pain." What she didn't say was that the new medication was just the sample packets Dr. Reynolds had given her because she couldn't afford the prescription. She also didn't mention that the specialist in Portland had left 3 voicemails about an urgent treatment they needed to discuss. "Well, you tell her we're praying for her," Mr. Patterson said, reaching out to squeeze Olivia's hand. The kindness of the town's residents was both a blessing and a curse. Their support kept her going, but their pitying glances reminded her daily of how dire her situation had become. As her shift neared its end, Olivia's phone vibrated in her pocket. Dr. Reynolds' office. She stepped into the small storage room and answered. "Miss Mason, Dr. Reynolds needs to see you as soon as possible to discuss your mother's test results. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" The urgency in the receptionist's voice sent a chill down Olivia's spine. "I'll be there." When her shift ended, Olivia walked the 3 miles home instead of taking the bus, tucking the saved fare into the jar labeled Mom's Treatment that was still woefully empty despite months of overtime shifts and skipped meals. The small cottage they rented on the outskirts of town had seen better days. The paint was peeling, and the roof leaked when it rained heavily, but it was home. As she opened the door, she heard the familiar sound of her mother's labored breathing. "Mom? I'm home." Eleanor Mason sat in her worn armchair by the window, a patchwork quilt covering her legs despite the warmth of the late spring day. Once vibrant and full of life, Eleanor now looked frail, her skin translucent, her once thick blonde hair now thin and grey. "How was work, sweetheart?" Eleanor asked, her voice weak but her eyes still bright with interest. "Same as always," Olivia replied, setting down her bag and kneeling beside her mother. "How are you feeling today? Did you eat the soup I left?" Eleanor nodded, reaching out to touch her daughter's face. "You work too hard, Liv. I hate being such a burden on you." "Don't you ever say that," Olivia said firmly, fighting back tears. "You're not a burden. You're my mother." That night, after helping Eleanor into bed, Olivia sat at their small kitchen table, bills and past-due notices spread out before her. The reality was stark and unforgiving. Her waitressing salary barely covered their rent and utilities, let alone the specialized treatments her mother needed. The medical bills had been mounting for years, ever since Eleanor was diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease that progressively attacked her nervous system. Olivia's phone rang again, startling. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Miss Mason, this is Dr. Sarah Patel, the specialist from Portland Medical Center. I've been trying to reach you." Olivia's heart raced. "Yes, sorry. I've been meaning to call back." "I'll get straight to the point. Your mother's condition has progressed more rapidly than we anticipated. There's a new treatment protocol that could significantly improve her quality of life and potentially halt the progression, but we need to start immediately." Hope bloomed in Olivia's chest. "That's wonderful news. What does the treatment involve?" It's a series of specialized immunotherapy sessions combined with targeted medication. The protocol has shown remarkable results in similar cases. And the cost? Olivia asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be one she wanted to hear. There was a pause on the other end. Even with assistance programs, you're looking at approximately $70,000 for the initial treatment phase. Your insurance won't cover experimental treatments. The hope that had momentarily lifted Olivia's spirits came crashing down. "I see," she managed to say, her voice hollow. "Miss Mason, I don't normally do this, but I know your situation. There's a medical charity gala happening in Boston next week. Many wealthy donors attend, looking for cases to sponsor. If you could attend and present your mother's case—" "I can't afford to go to Boston," Olivia interrupted, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. "But thank you for thinking of us." After hanging up, Olivia buried her face in her hands. $70,000 might as well have been $70 million. She had exactly $3,246.78 saved, the result of 3 years of scrimping and sacrificing every possible comfort. The next morning, Dr. Reynolds confirmed what the specialist had said. The urgency in his eyes told Olivia what he couldn't say aloud. Without this treatment, her mother's condition would continue to deteriorate rapidly. "There must be something we can do," Olivia pleaded. "Payment plans, clinical trials, anything." Dr. Reynolds's expression was sympathetic but resigned. "I've explored every avenue, Olivia. The treatment is specialized and costly. I'm sorry." Defeated, Olivia picked up an extra shift that afternoon, moving mechanically through her tasks while her mind raced with increasingly desperate solutions. She could sell the cottage, except they didn't own it. She could take out loans, except her credit was already stretched to the breaking point from previous medical bills. As she refilled coffee cups and took orders, a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. A sleek black luxury car had pulled up outside, drawing the eyes of everyone in the small cafe. The door opened, and a man stepped out, his designer clothes and confident demeanor immediately marking him as an outsider in Belle Harbor. "Is that who I think it is?" whispered Mandy, the other waitress, sidling up to Olivia. "That's Nathan Blackwood, the tech billionaire. What on earth is he doing in Belle Harbor?" The name was vaguely familiar to Olivia. She had seen it in magazines and on business news segments. One of those young tech entrepreneurs who had made a fortune before turning 30. As fate would have it, he sat at one of Olivia's tables, barely glancing up from his phone as she approached with a menu. "Welcome to Belle Harbor Cafe. Today's special is clam chowder in a sourdough bread bowl," she recited mechanically. Nathan. Blackwood looked up, his piercing blue eyes meeting hers for the first time. Something in his expression shifted, surprise perhaps, or curiosity. "I'll have a black coffee," he said, his voice smooth and accustomed to command. "And your name is?" "Olivia," she replied, taken aback by the personal question. He studied her for a moment longer than was comfortable. "You look tired, Olivia." The comment, delivered without malice but with a directness that bordered on rudeness, stung. "Your coffee will be right up, sir," she said curtly, turning away. What Olivia didn't realize was that this chance encounter would soon present her with the most difficult decision of her life, one that would challenge everything she believed about herself and what she was willing to sacrifice for love. For the next 3 days, Nathan Blackwood returned to the Belle Harbor Cafe at the same time, always requesting Olivia's section. Each day, he ordered only black coffee and stayed for exactly 45 minutes, typing on his laptop or taking calls. He left generous tips that Olivia reluctantly accepted, adding them to her mother's treatment jar without comment. On the 4th day, as Olivia placed his coffee on the table, Nathan closed his laptop and looked up at her. "I've been watching you," he said without preamble. "You work harder than anyone in this place, yet there's a sadness about you that doesn't fade, even when you smile at customers." Olivia stiffened. "Is there something wrong with your coffee, Mr. Blackwood?" "Please, sit down for a moment," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I'm working," she replied, glancing nervously at Jerry, who was watching their interaction with curiosity. "I'll make it worth your time," Nathan said, his voice dropping lower. "And your boss's time." 5 minutes. Against her better judgment, Olivia slid into the seat, placing her order pad on the table. "What do you want from me, Mr. Blackwood?" "I'm curious about you," he said, leaning forward. "You don't belong in this town any more than I do. I can see it in your eyes. You're trapped here." His assessment, though presumptuous, hit uncomfortably close to the truth. Before her mother's illness, Olivia had been studying architecture at Boston University. She'd had plans, dreams, a future that had nothing to do with refilling coffee cups in a small coastal town. "You don't know anything about me," she said, moving to stand. "Your mother is sick," he continued, stopping her in her tracks. "Something serious and expensive to treat." Olivia's blood ran cold. "How do you—" I make it my business to know things, Olivia." His blue eyes were calculating but not unkind. "And I might be able to help." "We don't need charity," she said automatically, rising from her seat. "I'm not offering charity," Nathan's voice remained calm. "I'm proposing a transaction." The way he said transaction made Olivia's skin crawl, but curiosity kept her rooted to the spot. "What kind of transaction?" "Meet me for dinner tonight and I'll explain." He slid a business card across the table. 8 o'clock at the Harbour View Inn. It's the only decent restaurant in this town, I'm told. Olivia should have thrown the card back in his face and walked away. Instead, she tucked it into her apron pocket. "I can't promise anything. That's all I ask. A chance to make my proposition." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "And Olivia? Come alone." The rest of her shift passed in a blur. By closing time, Olivia had convinced herself she wouldn't go. Whatever this billionaire wanted from her, it couldn't be good. Yet when she got home and found her mother in the throes of a particularly painful episode, the specialist's words echoed in her mind. "We need to start immediately." At 7:55 p.m., wearing the only decent dress she owned, a navy blue wrap dress, she'd bought for a cousin's wedding 3 years ago, Olivia entered the Harbour View Inn. Nathan was already seated at a corner table with a spectacular view of the moonlit bay. "You came," he said, standing as she approached. He was even more handsome in the soft lighting, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than her annual salary. "I'm still not sure why," she replied honestly, taking the seat a waiter pulled out for her. "Order whatever you'd like," Nathan said, motioning to the menu. "The chef here is surprisingly talented for such a remote location." "I'd rather you—" "Just tell me why I'm here," Olivia countered, leaving the menu untouched. Nathan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Direct, I appreciate that." He took a sip of his water. "I know about your mother's condition. Multiple system atrophy, a rare and progressive disorder. I know about the experimental treatment. That could help her. And I know it costs approximately $70,000. Olivia's hands began to tremble under the table. "How could you possibly know all that?" "As I said, knowing things is what I do." His expression remained impassive. "I also know you make just above minimum wage at that cafe, that you've exhausted all conventional financial resources, and that without intervention, your mother's prognosis is poor. If you're going to sit there and recite all the ways my life is falling apart, I'll save you the trouble and leave right now," Olivia said, her voice tight with emotion. "I'm going to pay for your mother's treatment," Nathan stated simply. "All of it. The initial phase and any follow-up care she needs." The world seemed to stop. Olivia stared at him, certain she had misheard. "Why would you do that?" "Because I can," he said with a casual shrug that belied the magnitude of his offer. "But as I mentioned earlier, this is a transaction, not charity." The brief flicker of hope that had ignited in Olivia's chest dimmed. "What exactly do you want from me?" Nathan leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "One night, Olivia. Spend one night with me, and I'll ensure your mother gets the best medical care money can buy." The implications of his words hung in the air between them. Olivia felt as though she'd been struck. "You're asking me to sleep with you. For money?" "I'm asking for one night of your time," he clarified, his voice level. "What happens during that night is up to us to decide together. But yes, that's the general idea." Olivia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "You're disgusting," she hissed, conscious of the other diners who had turned to look. "I'm not for sale, Mr. Blackwood." "Everyone has a price, Olivia," he replied, unmoved by her reaction. "I'm simply being honest about mine." "Keep your money," she said, throwing her napkin on the table, "and stay away from me and my mother." As she stormed out of the restaurant, tears blurred her vision. The cool evening air hit her face but did nothing to calm the storm of emotions raging inside her. Anger, disgust, humiliation, and underneath it all, a terrible, gnawing desperation. Because for one brief moment, she had actually considered his offer. The walk home gave Olivia time to compose herself before facing her mother. Eleanor was already asleep when she arrived, her breathing labored even in rest. Olivia sat beside her bed, watching the rise and fall of her chest, cataloguing every new sign of deterioration that had appeared in recent weeks. "I'd do anything for you," she whispered, stroking her mother's thin hand. "But that I can't. There has to be another way." The next morning, Dr. Reynolds called with news that sent Olivia's world spiraling further. Eleanor's latest test results showed accelerated deterioration. Without intervention, she might have only months left. Olivia went through her shift mechanically, dropping plates and mixing up orders. Nathan didn't show up at his usual time, for which she was grateful. But as she was leaving, the sleek black car was parked outside, Nathan leaning against it casually. "I owe you an apology," he said as she approached. "My proposal yesterday was crudely presented." "There's no presentation that would make it less offensive," Olivia replied, attempting to walk past him. He stepped into her path. "Just hear me out, please." Something in his voice, a hint of vulnerability she hadn't heard before, made her pause. "People see me a certain way," Nathan began, running a hand through his dark hair. "Rich, successful, enviable. What they don't see is the emptiness. Every relationship, every interaction, it's all colored by who I am and what I have. Nothing feels real anymore." "Is this supposed to make me feel sorry for you?" Olivia asked, crossing her arms. "Poor little rich boy, surrounded by fake people." "I'm not asking for sympathy," he said sharply. "I'm trying to explain why I made that offer. When I saw you that first day, the way you carry yourself, the genuineness in your interactions, I was intrigued. You're different, real in a way I haven't experienced in years." "So you thought you'd buy a piece of that realness?" Olivia couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "That's not how it works, Nathan." "I know that now," he admitted. "But my offer stands, with a modification. I still want one night with you, but all I'm asking for is your company. Dinner, conversation, nothing more than you're comfortable with." Olivia laughed incredulously. "And for this date, you'll pay $70,000 for my mother's treatment?" "Yes." His gaze was steady, unflinching. "I'll pay for it regardless of how the evening ends." "Why? What do you get out of this?" Nathan looked out at the harbor, the setting sun casting long shadows across his face. "A chance to feel something genuine, to connect with someone who sees me as a man, not a bank account or a stepping stone to some personal goal." Olivia shook her head in disbelief. "You could have normal relationships if you tried. You don't need to coerce women with financial incentives." "Coercion implies unwillingness," he corrected her. "I'm offering a choice, take it or don't, Olivia. But your mother's time is running out, and we both know you've exhausted all other options." His words hit her like a physical blow because they were true. She had called every charity, applied for every program, begged and pleaded with insurance companies. There were no other options left. "I need to think about it," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan nodded, opening the car door. "I'm staying in the penthouse suite at the Harbor View. Call me when you decide, but don't take too long. Some opportunities have expiration dates." As he drove away, Olivia stood rooted to the spot, the weight of his offer pressing down on her. Like a physical thing, one night for $70,000, one night to save her mother's life. What choice did she really have? 3 days passed before Olivia could bring herself to make the call. 3 days of watching her mother's condition deteriorate further, of fielding increasingly urgent calls from Dr. Reynolds, of lying awake at night, weighing impossible choices against unthinkable consequences. "Hello?" Nathan's voice was alert, despite the late hour. "It's Olivia." She sat on the porch steps of her cottage, her voice low to avoid waking her mother. "I've made my decision." There was a pause on the other end. "And?" "I have conditions," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "First, you pay for the treatment before anything happens between us. All of it, up front." "Done," Nathan replied without hesitation. "What else?" "After that night, we're even. You don't contact me again, you don't come to the cafe, you disappear from our lives completely." Another pause. "If that's what you want." "And finally," Olivia continued, her heart hammering against her ribs, "I want your word that nothing that happens that night will ever be shared with anyone. Not your friends, not your business associates, no one." "You have my word," Nathan said solemnly. "Is that all?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Yes, I'll spend one night with you in exchange for my mother's treatment." The words left a bitter taste in her mouth, but she pushed aside her revulsion, focusing instead on Eleanor's face, on the relief that proper treatment would bring her. "I'll have my assistant arrange everything with the medical center tomorrow," Nathan said. "Once the treatment is scheduled and paid for, we'll set a date for our con arrangement." "Fine," Olivia said curtly. "Good night, Mr. Blackwood." "Nathan," he corrected her. "After all, we should be on a first-name basis given the circumstances." After hanging up, Olivia remained on the porch steps for a long time, gazing up at the stars that seemed suddenly cold and distant. Had she just sold a piece of her soul? Or was this simply what love looked like sometimes, ugly and painful, but necessary? The next morning, Olivia received a call from Dr. Patel in Portland. The specialist's voice was filled with excitement. "Miss Mason, I've just received notification that all expenses for your mother's treatment have been covered by a private donor. We can begin as early as next week. It's extraordinary." Relief flooded through Olivia, momentarily overshadowing the cost she would have to pay. That's wonderful news. Thank you." "The donor wishes to remain anonymous," Dr. Patel continued. "But whoever they are, they've ensured your mother will receive the absolute best care available. It's quite remarkable." After hanging up, Olivia sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the wall. Nathan had kept his word. The treatment was secured. Now she had to keep hers. She told her mother a modified version of the truth, that a medical charity had selected Eleanor's case for full funding. The joy and hope that bloomed on Eleanor's face almost made the lie worthwhile. "It's a miracle," Eleanor whispered, tears streaming down her hollow cheeks. "I was ready to let go, Liv. I was making peace with it." "You don't have to give up," Olivia said fiercely, holding her mother's frail hands. "We're going to fight this together." The following week was a whirlwind of preparations. Eleanor was admitted to Portland Medical Center, where she began the first phase of her treatment. The change was almost immediate. Color returned to her. Cheeks, her energy improved, and for the first time in years, she spoke of the future with hope rather than resignation. Meanwhile, Olivia received a text from Nathan. "Friday night. I'll send a car at 8 p.m. Friday arrived with merciless speed. Olivia spent the afternoon at the hospital with Eleanor, who was responding remarkably well to the treatment. Her mother noticed her distraction. "What's troubling you, sweetheart?" "You've been somewhere else all day." Olivia forced a smile. "Just tired. The commute to Portland is taking a lot out of me." "Maybe you should stay in town tonight," Eleanor suggested. "Get a good night's sleep at a hotel. You've been running yourself ragged." The irony of her mother's suggestion wasn't lost on Olivia. "Maybe I will," she replied, kissing Eleanor's forehead. "You focus on getting better. That's all that matters." As she left the hospital, Olivia's phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "Change of plans. Come to the Ocean View Estate on Shore Road. The car will take you there." The Ocean View Estate was legendary in Belle Harbor, a sprawling mansion perched on the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. It had been a private residence for generations, owned by some wealthy family from Boston who visited only occasionally. Olivia hadn't known Nathan was staying there. At exactly 8 p.m., a car pulled up outside her cottage. The driver, a discreet man in a dark suit, opened the door for her without comment. Olivia had agonized over what to wear, eventually settling on a simple black dress, appropriate for what felt like a funeral for her self-respect. The drive to the estate took 15 minutes, each passing second heightening Olivia's anxiety. What had she agreed to? Would she even recognize herself after tonight? The mansion was even more impressive up close, a stunning example of coastal New England architecture with sweeping windows that captured the ocean view. As the car pulled into the circular driveway, Olivia steeled herself, repeating the mantra that had gotten her this far. For Mom. Only for Mom. The door opened before she reached it, revealing Nathan in a casual but clearly expensive outfit. Dark, jeans and a light blue button-down shirt that matched his eyes. "You came," he said, his expression giving nothing away. "I keep my promises," Olivia replied coldly, stepping inside. The interior of the mansion was tastefully decorated in muted blues and creams, the decor elegant without being ostentatious. Through the massive windows, the moonlight danced on the dark waters of the Atlantic. "Would you like a drink?" Nathan asked, leading her to a spacious living room dominated by a stone fireplace. "No," Olivia answered, then reconsidered. "Actually, yes, whatever you're having." Nathan poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Scotch, 30-year-old single malt." "Fancy," Olivia said, unable to keep the edge from her voice as she accepted the glass. "Is that supposed to impress me?" "No," he replied simply. "I just like good Scotch." Olivia took a sip, the liquid burning a path down her throat. She needed the warmth, the liquid courage. The silence stretched between them, taut and uncomfortable. "Your mother has started treatment?" Nathan asked finally. "Yes, she's responding well." Olivia's fingers tightened around the glass. "Thank you for that, at least." Nathan nodded, his eyes fixed on the ocean beyond the windows. "I visited her doctor before approving the payment. Your mother's case is fascinating from a medical perspective. The treatment protocol they're using is groundbreaking." "Fascinating? Her suffering is fascinating to you?" Olivia couldn't contain her anger. "This isn't a science experiment, Nathan. It's my mother's life." "That's not what I meant," he said, looking genuinely contrite. "I only wanted to ensure the money was going to legitimate treatment." "Well, you've done your due diligence," Olivia said bitterly. "Congratulations on your thorough research." Another silence fell, this one heavier than the last. Olivia drained her glass, welcoming the warmth spreading through her limbs, dulling the edges of her anxiety. "I had dinner prepared," Nathan said suddenly. "Nothing elaborate, just grilled salmon and vegetables from a local chef. Are you hungry?" Food was the last thing on Olivia's mind, but the prospect of delaying what was to come was appealing. Sure. They ate at a small table on the terrace, the sound of waves crashing against the cliffs below filling the silence between them. The food was exquisite, but Olivia barely tasted it. She was acutely aware of Nathan watching her, his gaze studying her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Tell me about your life before Bell Harbor," he said as they finished eating. "You mentioned once that you were studying architecture." The question caught Olivia off guard. "Why do you care?" "Because I want to know you," Nathan replied. "The real you, not just the waitress or the dutiful daughter." "Is this what you paid for? My life story?" Olivia set down her fork with a clatter. "Or are you just prolonging the inevitable?" Nathan's expression hardened. "I'm trying to have a conversation, Olivia, to connect with you as a person. Isn't that what this night is supposed to be about?" "No," she shot back. "This night is about a transaction. You bought my company, not my biography." "Fine," Nathan said, pushing back from the table. "We'll skip the pleasantries." He stood and extended his hand to her. Olivia stared at it for a long moment before reluctantly placing her hand in his. His touch was warm, his fingers closing gently around hers as he led her back inside. In the living room, Nathan released her hand and walked to a built-in speaker system, pressing a few buttons. Soft music filled the room, something classical that Olivia didn't recognize. "Dance with me," he said, returning to stand before her. "You can't be serious." "One dance," Nathan insisted, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. "Then we can proceed however you wish." Reluctantly, Olivia stepped into his arms, keeping as much distance between their bodies as possible while still maintaining the pretense of dancing. Nathan didn't push for more, moving slowly in time with the music, one hand resting lightly on her waist, the other holding hers. Despite herself, Olivia found her body relaxing as they moved together. The combination of the scotch, the music, and the gentle rhythm of their steps created a strange, dreamlike atmosphere that made it easier to forget why she was there. "You're a good dancer," Nathan murmured, breaking the silence. "My dad taught me," Olivia replied, without thinking. "Before he left us." "When was that?" "I was 12. Mum got sick a year later." The words slipped out before she could stop them. He couldn't handle it, her illness, the medical bills, so he just disappeared. Nathan's hand tightened slightly on her waist. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It taught me an important lesson early." Dyson, Olivia's voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her pain. "People leave when things get hard." "Not everyone," Nathan said quietly. Olivia laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the music. "Says the man who made it a condition of our agreement that he never see me again after tonight." The barb hit its mark. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond immediately. They continued to dance, the space between them charged with unspoken emotions. "What if I was wrong about that?" he asked finally. "What if one night isn't enough?" "It has to be," Olivia replied firmly. "That was our deal." Nathan stopped dancing, his hands still holding her, his eyes searching her face. "Deals can be renegotiated." "Not this one." Olivia stepped back, breaking contact. "I agreed to one night, nothing more." For a moment, Nathan looked as though he might argue, but instead he nodded. "As you wish." He moved to the bar and poured himself another scotch, downing it in one swallow. When he turned back to her, his expression had changed, a mask of cool detachment, replacing the momentary vulnerability she'd glimpsed. "It's getting late," he said, his voice neutral. "Shall we move this upstairs?" The question hung in the air between them, bringing Olivia crashing back to reality. This was it, the moment of truth. Could she go through with it? As she looked at Nathan, this wealthy, powerful man who had bought her company for the night, Olivia was struck by a sudden realization. Despite his money and influence, he seemed just as lost as she was, searching for something genuine in a world that had given him everything except what he truly needed. "Yes," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "Let's go upstairs." The tour. Staircase seemed to stretch endlessly before Olivia, each step bringing her closer to a moment she had both dreaded and resigned herself to. Nathan walked slightly ahead, his broad shoulders tense beneath his tailored shirt. The silence between them was deafening, filled only by the sound of their footsteps on the polished hardwood. At the top of the stairs, Nathan led her down a hallway lined with tasteful artwork, seascapes and abstract pieces that probably cost more than she'd make in a decade. He stopped before a door at the end of the hall, his hand on the knob, but didn't open it immediately. "Olivia," he began, his voice strangely hesitant, "you can still change your mind. The money is yours. Your mother's treatment is guaranteed, regardless of what happens tonight." The offer caught her by surprise. She studied his face, searching for some hidden agenda, some trick, but found only what appeared to be genuine concern. "Why would you do that?" she asked, suspicion coloring her tone. "Pay for everything and expect nothing in return?" Nathan ran a hand through his dark hair, a surprisingly vulnerable gesture from a man who seemed to calculate his every move. "Because this isn't how I wanted things between us. I've handled this all wrong from the beginning." "There is no between us, Nathan," Olivia reminded him, her voice soft but firm. "There's a business arrangement, nothing more." "Is that really all this is to you?" he asked, his blue eyes searching hers. For a moment, Olivia faltered. There had been something during their dance, a connection she hadn't anticipated and couldn't quite explain, but acknowledging it felt dangerous, like stepping onto thin ice. "Yes," she lied, steeling herself. "That's all it is. And I intend to honor our agreement." Nathan held her gaze for another heartbeat before nodding and opening the door. The master suite was exactly what Olivia had expected, luxurious and impeccably decorated, dominated by a massive four-poster bed and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the moonlit ocean. "I'll give you some privacy," Nathan said, gesturing to an adjoining door. "The bathroom is through there. Take all the time you need." When he closed the door behind him, Olivia stood frozen in the center of the room, reality crashing over her in waves. She was really here, about to go through with this. For a wild moment she considered fleeing, running down those stairs and all the way back to her cottage, consequences be damned. But the image of her mother's face, bright with hope for the hour, first time in years, anchored her to the spot. This was her choice, the hardest one she'd ever made, but hers nonetheless. And she would face it with the same determination that had gotten her through every other challenge life had thrown her way. In the bathroom, Olivia splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection in the ornate mirror. The woman, looking back at her, was a stranger, pale, resolute, with shadows in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She took a deep breath, released it slowly, and whispered, "For Mum." When she emerged, Nathan was standing by the windows looking out at the ocean. He'd removed his shoes and unbuttoned the top buttons of his shirt, but was otherwise unchanged. He turned at the sound of the door, his expression unreadable. "Would you like another drink?" he offered, gesturing to a small bar cart near the ewe. Phallic Olivia shook her head. "I want to be present for this, no matter how difficult." Something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Respect, perhaps, or surprise. "You continue to astonish me, Olivia Mason." "Let's just get this over with," she said, steeling herself as she approached the bed. Nathan remained by the window. "Do you truly think so little of me?" The question hung in the air between them. Olivia paused, her defenses momentarily lowered by his subdued tone. "I don't know you well enough to think anything of you, Nathan." "Then let's change that," he suggested, crossing to an armchair near the fireplace and sitting down. "Talk to me. Tell me who Olivia Mason really is beyond the waitress uniform and the devoted daughter." Olivia remained standing, confusion replacing her anxiety. "I thought, isn't this why we're here?" "We're here because I wanted something real," Nathan said simply. "Sex with someone who views it as a transaction isn't real, Olivia. It's just another form of pretending, and I've had enough of that to last a lifetime." "So what do you want then?" Olivia asked, perching tentatively on the edge of the bed. "Conversation, honesty, a few hours with someone who isn't trying to impress me or get something from me." He paused, then added with a wry smile, "Although I suppose I'm the one who's trying to get something from you in this scenario." Despite herself, Olivia felt a small smile tug at her lips. "You're an odd man, Nathan Blackwood." "So I've been told." He leaned back in the chair, his posture relaxing slightly. "Now, tell me about the architecture studies you abandoned. What drew you to it?" For reasons she couldn't fully explain, Olivia found herself answering. "I've always been fascinated by the way spaces affect people, how a well-designed building can inspire or comfort or challenge. Architecture seemed like the perfect blend of art and science, creativity and practicality." "What would you design if you could build anything?" Nathan asked, genuine interest in his voice. "Healing spaces," Olivia replied without hesitation. "Hospitals and treatment centers that don't feel sterile and intimidating. Places where people could recover with dignity and hope." Her voice softened. "After spending so much time in hospitals with Mom, I realized how much the environment affects the healing process." As the conversation flowed, Olivia gradually relaxed. They talked about his work in tech, her dreams for the future, books they'd read, places they'd visited. Nathan listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions that suggested he was genuinely interested in her answers. "How did you make your fortune?" Olivia asked eventually, curling her legs beneath her on the bed. "The abbreviated version, please. I don't need your entire resume." Nathan laughed, a warm sound that transformed his usually serious face. The short version: I developed a predictive algorithm for supply chain management when I was at MIT, started a company, caught the attention of some major investors, and rode the tech boom to an outrageously successful IPO. Just like that? Olivia raised an eyebrow, skeptically. Well, there were a few years of 18-hour workdays, sleeping on an office floor, and eating nothing but ramen in between, he admitted. But essentially, yes, right place, right time, right idea. And now you have everything you could possibly want, Olivia concluded, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from her voice. Nathan's expression sobered. Not everything. What could you possibly be missing? She challenged. You have more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. Connection, he said simply. Real human connection. Do you have any idea what it's like to never know if someone genuinely likes you, or if they're just after what you can give them? Poor little rich boy, Olivia murmured, echoing her words from their previous encounter, but this time without the sharp edge. I know how it sounds, Nathan acknowledged, a rueful smile playing on his lips. Complaining about the downsides of wealth to someone struggling to pay medical bills. But loneliness isn't exclusive to any income bracket, Olivia. There was something disarming about his candor, about the way he acknowledged his privilege while still expressing a very human need for connection. In that moment, Olivia saw beyond the billionaire facade to the man beneath, intelligent, complex, and surprisingly vulnerable. Is that why you made your proposal? She asked, because you thought paying for it would somehow make it more real. Nathan considered her question, his gaze thoughtful. I think I thought that by making it an explicit transaction, we'd be cutting through all the pretense. No games, no hidden agendas, just honesty. That's a strange way of looking at it. I'm beginning to realize that, he admitted. It was flawed logic. Just because something is transactional doesn't make it real. As the hours passed, they migrated from bed and chair to the small balcony overlooking the ocean. Nathan brought out a bottle of wine and 2 glasses, and they sat side by side watching the moonlight dance on the waves. Tell me about your mother, Nathan said quietly. It was a topic Olivia usually avoided with others, finding their sympathy either overwhelming or insufficient. But there was something about the night, about the strange intimacy they'd developed, that loosened her usual reserve. She was a force of nature before she got sick, Olivia began, a small smile playing on her lips. An elementary school art teacher who believed creativity could save the world. Our house was always full of projects and experiments, papier-mâché volcanoes erupting in the kitchen, murals covering every available wall. She sounds remarkable, Nathan said softly. She is, Olivia agreed, her throat tightening with emotion. Even now, with everything she's going through, she finds joy in small things. A bird outside her. Window, a particularly good cup of tea. She never complains, never asks why this happened to her. But you do, Nathan observed. Ask why, I mean. Olivia nodded, tears threatening. All the time. Why her? Why us? What did we do to deserve this? Without warning, Nathan reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her skin. There is no why, Olivia. No cosmic justice or injustice, just life in all its random cruelty and unexpected beauty. His touch was warm, comforting in a way she hadn't allowed herself to need in years. Olivia found herself leaning into him, her head coming to rest on his shoulder as the tears she'd been holding back for so long finally broke free. Nathan said nothing, simply holding her as she cried for her mother, for the life they'd lost, for all the sacrifices she'd made and would continue to make. When her tears finally subsided, she didn't pull away immediately, finding a strange comfort in his embrace. I'm sorry, she said at last, straightening up and wiping her eyes. That wasn't part of our agreement. Maybe it should have been, Nathan replied, his voice gentle. Real connection isn't just about sharing the good parts of ourselves, Olivia. It's about trusting someone enough to show them our wounds, our fears, our grief. As the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon, they found themselves back in the bedroom, sitting side by side on the edge of the massive bed. Exhaustion pulled at Olivia, Not just physical, but emotional. The kind that comes from bearing. Your soul to someone you'd intended to keep at arm's length. The sun will be up soon, Nathan observed, his voice soft in the pre-dawn stillness. Our time is almost up, Olivia replied, a strange melancholy settling over her. It doesn't have to be, he said, turning to face her. Olivia, She pressed a finger to his lips, stopping his words. Don't, please. Whatever you're about to say, don't say it. Nathan gently removed her finger but kept hold of her hand. Why not? Because this isn't real, Olivia insisted, pulling her hand away. This night, this connection, it's built on a foundation that's fundamentally wrong. I'm here because you're paying for my mother's treatment. That fact doesn't disappear just because we had a nice conversation. What if I told you I've never felt more myself with anyone? Nathan's voice was low, intense. What if this is the most real thing I've experienced in years? Then I'd say you need to get out more, Olivia replied, trying for lightness but hearing the tremor in her voice. Meet people under normal circumstances, without financial transactions involved. And what if I told you I'm falling for you? He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face with gentle fingers. Olivia's heart stuttered, a treacherous flicker of emotion she refused to acknowledge. I'd say that's impossible. You don't know me, not really. I know enough, Nathan insisted. I know you're strong and principled and fiercely loyal. I know you love architecture and hate peanut butter and cry at silly commercials about puppies. You know what I chose to tell you during one unusual night, Olivia countered, standing up to put distance between them. That's not the same as knowing me. Nathan rose as well, his height and presence suddenly overwhelming in the intimate space. Then give me the chance to know you better. Let me see you again, properly, without any conditions or transactions. That wasn't our deal, Olivia said firmly, though something inside her wavered at the earnestness in his eyes. To hell with the deal, Nathan said, a new urgency in his voice. Olivia, please don't walk away from this, from us, before we've even given it a chance. In that moment, standing in the soft light of dawn with this man who had seen her at her most vulnerable, Olivia felt something shift inside her. A door, opening to possibilities she'd never allowed herself to consider. But alongside it came a surge of fear, of self-preservation that had been her companion through years of hardship. There is no us, Nathan, she said, the words feeling like stones in her mouth. There's just tonight, and when the sun comes, Gerp, it will be over, that's what we agreed to. Nathan's expression hardened, the vulnerability she'd glimpsed throughout the night disappearing behind the mask of the confident billionaire. Always so rigid, so principled. Has it occurred to you that sometimes life offers unexpected gifts, if only we're brave enough to accept them? This isn't a gift, Olivia replied, her voice breaking. It's a complication I can't afford. My mother needs me. Her treatment, her care, that has to be my priority right now. And what about what you need? Nathan challenged, stepping closer. What about your dreams, your future? Are you going to put those on hold indefinitely? If that's what it takes, yes, Olivia answered without hesitation. She's all I have, Nathan, all that matters. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words, with possibilities neither of them was ready to acknowledge. Finally, Nathan nodded, acceptance settling over his features. The car will take you home whenever you're ready, he said, his voice formal once more. Your mother's treatment is fully covered, as agreed. You won't hear from me again. As he turned to leave, Olivia felt a sudden panic rise in her chest, an irrational fear that once he walked out that door, something precious would be lost forever. Nathan, wait. He paused, his hand on the doorknob, but didn't turn around. Thank you, she said simply. For everything. For helping my mother and for tonight. For making it different than I expected. Nathan looked back at her then, his eyes holding hers across the room. Goodbye, Olivia. As the door closed behind him, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed, the enormity of the night washing over her. She had come expecting to sacrifice her dignity, her principles, to endure an experience she would spend a lifetime trying to forget. Instead, she had found a connection so unexpected, so profound, that walking away from it felt like its own kind of sacrifice. The sun broke over the horizon, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. A new day was beginning, and with it, the end of her arrangement with Nathan Blackwood. But as Olivia gathered her things and prepared to return to her normal life, she couldn't silence the small voice inside her that whispered an uncomfortable truth. Nothing about her life would ever feel normal again. 3 months passed, each day blending into the next in a rhythm that should have felt comforting in its familiarity. Olivia continued her shifts at the Bell Harbor Cafe, commuted to Portland to visit her mother at the treatment center, and returned to an empty cottage that seemed to grow more silent with each passing day. Eleanor's progress was nothing short of miraculous. The experimental treatment had halted the progression of her disease and even reversed some of the damage. Her strength was returning, her mind clearing of the fog that had descended in recent years. The doctors spoke optimistically about her eventual return home, about a quality of life they hadn't dared hope for just months earlier. It should have been enough, this miracle that Olivia had sacrificed so much to secure. Yet as summer faded into autumn, she found herself haunted by memories of that night at the Ocean View estate, by conversations that had unexpectedly changed her. Nathan Blackwood had kept his word. He had disappeared completely from her life, leaving no trace except for the substantial funds deposited for Eleanor's ongoing care. Sometimes Olivia wondered if she had imagined the connection between them, if the intensity of that night had been a product of extreme circumstances rather than genuine feeling. "You're distracted again," Jerry commented one morning as Olivia nearly collided with him in the cafe kitchen. "That's the 3rd time this week you've almost worn someone's breakfast." "Sorry," Olivia murmured, adjusting the plates on her tray. "Just tired." But it wasn't fatigue that plagued her. It was an emptiness she couldn't quite name, a sense that something vital was missing from her life. As her mother grew stronger, Olivia should have felt lighter, freer. Instead, she felt adrift, uncertain of her place in a world where Eleanor might no longer need her constant care. One rainy Tuesday in October, Olivia arrived at the Portland Medical Center for her usual visit to find her mother sitting in a chair by the window, dressed not in the hospital gown she'd worn for months, but in her own clothes. "What's going on?" Olivia asked, setting down the books she'd brought. Eleanor's smile was radiant. "Dr. Patel says I can go home, Liv, not just for a visit, for good. The treatment has stabilized my condition beyond their most optimistic projections." Joy and disbelief warred in Olivia's chest. "Are you serious? When?" "This weekend," Eleanor replied, reaching for her daughter's hand. "I'll need to come back for regular treatments, but I can live at home, pick up some of my old activities. Maybe even teach art classes again eventually." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "Mom, that's incredible." "It's more than incredible," Eleanor said, her voice trembling with emotion. "It's a second chance I never thought I'd have, and it's all because of you, Liv. Your dedication, your sacrifices." Guilt flashed through Olivia at her mother's words. If Eleanor knew the truth about how her treatment had been secured, would she still look at her daughter with such pride? "I'd do anything for you, Mum," Olivia said, the words catching in her throat. "You know that." That night, alone in the cottage, Olivia sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open before her. The Boston University website displayed information about their architecture program, deadlines for readmission, financial aid options, course requirements. With Eleanor recovering and able to care for herself soon, there was nothing holding Olivia in Bell Harbor any longer. Yet as she scrolled through the familiar pages, imagining a return to the life she'd abandoned, something felt off. The dream that had sustained her through years of hardship now seemed distant, like a path that belonged to someone else. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mandy. "Turn on Channel 7 now, your billionaire is on." Olivia's heart lurched as she grabbed the remote, switching on the small television in the corner of the kitchen. Nathan's face filled the screen, his expression serious as he addressed a room full of reporters, which is why the Blackwood Foundation is committing $500 million to fund research into rare autoimmune disorders and provide treatment access to those who cannot afford it, he was saying. No one should have to choose between financial security and the health of their loved ones. The camera cut to a reporter. "Mr. Blackwood, this is quite a departure from your usual tech investments. What inspired this new philanthropic direction?" For a moment, something vulnerable flashed across Nathan's face, so brief that anyone who hadn't spent hours studying his expressions might have missed it. "Let's just say I met someone who helped me understand what really matters in life. Someone who taught me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars." Olivia's phone buzzed again. "OMG, is he talking about you?" Mandy's text read. She switched off the TV, her mind racing. $500 million for rare disease research and treatment access. The timing couldn't be coincidental. For days, Olivia wrestled with conflicting emotions. She should be pleased that something positive had come from their unusual encounter, that others would benefit from treatments like the one saving her mother. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan's grand gesture was somehow meant for her, a message she wasn't sure how to interpret. The weekend arrived, bringing with it Eleanor's homecoming. The cottage, which had felt so empty for months, was suddenly filled with life again as her mother moved slowly from room to room, reacquainting herself with the space, making plans for small improvements now that her future seemed less precarious. "This place needs some color," Eleanor declared, eyeing the faded walls of the living room. "And maybe some of those floating shelves for my art supplies. I've been sketching again in the hospital. Did I show you?" Olivia smiled, watching her, mother's renewed enthusiasm with a mixture of joy and something close to melancholy. For so long, her entire identity had been wrapped up in being Eleanor's caretaker. Now, as her mother reclaimed her independence, Olivia faced the daunting prospect of redefining herself. 2 weeks after Eleanor's return home, Olivia received an unexpected call from Dr. Patel. "Miss Mason, I wanted to inform you personally that your mother has been selected for a special long-term study related to her treatment. All her future medical needs will be fully covered, including in-home care assistance when needed." "Selected? By whom?" Olivia asked, suspicion immediately rising. "The selection process is confidential," Dr. Patel replied carefully, "but I can assure you this is a legitimate research opportunity that will benefit your mother greatly." After hanging up, Olivia sat on the porch steps watching the autumn leaves dance across the yard. She knew exactly who was behind this selection, and while she should feel grateful, something like anger simmered beneath the surface. Nathan was still interfering in her life, still making decisions that affected her future without consulting her. The next morning, she called in sick to the cafe for the first time in years and drove to Boston. She had no plan, no appointment, just a determination to confront the man who seemed unwilling to honor their agreement to stay out of each other's lives. Blackwood Technologies occupied the top floors of a gleaming skyscraper in the financial district. In the massive lobby, Olivia approached the reception desk with more confidence than she felt. "I need to see Nathan Blackwood," she stated simply. The immaculately dressed receptionist didn't even look up from her computer. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but Mr. Blackwood's schedule is booked months in advance. If you'd like to leave your information, someone from his office can contact you about setting up a meeting." Olivia leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Please tell him Olivia Mason is here. If he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave immediately." Something in her tone must have registered with the receptionist, who finally looked up, studying Olivia's face with newfound interest. "One moment." After a brief phone conversation, the woman's professional demeanor shifted subtly. "Please take the executive elevator to the 47th floor. Mr. Blackwood's assistant will meet you there." The elevator ride gave Olivia precious moments to compose herself, to rehearse the speech she'd been formulating during the drive. But when the doors opened to reveal Nathan himself standing in the reception area, all her carefully planned words evaporated. He looked different in his corporate environment, more polished, more distant, the vulnerability she'd glimpsed that night carefully concealed beneath tailored suits and professional composure. Yet when their eyes met, something flickered behind his mask, surprise, perhaps, or hope. "Olivia," he said simply, "this is unexpected." "We need to talk," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Privately, Without another word, Nathan led her through the bustling office to a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston skyline. Once the door closed behind them, the corporate persona seemed to fall away, leaving the man she'd spent one unforgettable night with. "You're interfering again," Olivia said without preamble. "The research study for my mother, the in-home care, I know it's you." Nathan didn't deny it. "Your mother deserves the best possible care. I have the resources to provide it. What's the problem?" "The problem is that you're still trying to control my life." Olivia's carefully contained emotions began to spill over. "We had an agreement, Nathan. One night and then you disappear. But you're still there, hovering in the background, making decisions that affect my future. Is your mother's future not important to you?" he countered, his tone maddeningly reasonable. "Of course it is, but that's not the point. The point is—" Olivia broke off, struggling to articulate the complex emotions churning inside her. "The point is that I need to find my own way forward, to make my own choices. I can't do that with you constantly stepping in to fix things." Nathan moved to the window, his back to her as he gazed out at the city below. "I saw you that first. Today at the cafe, Olivia, and something changed. I've spent my entire adult life building an empire, accumulating wealth and power, and none of it meant anything until I met someone who reminded me what really matters." "So I'm what? Your redemption story?" Olivia asked bitterly. "The waitress who taught the billionaire how to care?" "No," Nathan said, turning to face her. "You're the woman who made me realize I've been sleepwalking through my life. The woman I haven't been able to stop thinking about for 3 months. The woman I'm falling in love with." The word love hung in the air between them, charged and dangerous. Olivia took a step back, her defenses rising instantly. "You can't love me, Nathan. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he insisted, echoing his words from that night. "I know you're facing a crossroads now that your mother is recovering. I know you're considering returning to architecture school, but aren't sure it's what you want anymore. I know you're afraid of building a life for yourself because for so long your only purpose was taking care of Eleanor." His accuracy was unsettling. "Have you been spying on me?" "No," Nathan said, a hint of frustration in his voice. "I've been thinking about you, constantly, wondering what you're doing, what you're feeling, if you ever think about that night, the way I do." "It doesn't matter," Olivia insisted, though her resolve was weakening. "What happened between us was artificial, built on an arrangement that was fundamentally wrong." "Was it?" Nathan challenged, moving closer. "The arrangement got us in the same room, yes, but what happened after? The connection we formed, the truths we shared, that was real, Olivia. And you know it." She did know it, and that was the problem. Despite all logic, despite the circumstances that had brought them together, something genuine had blossomed during those hours of conversation, something that had haunted her every day since. "Even if it was real," Olivia conceded, "it doesn't change the fact that we come from different worlds. You live in penthouse suites and fly private jets. I serve coffee and clip coupons to make ends meet." "Those are circumstances, not barriers," Nathan argued, "unless you let them be." "Easy for you to say," Olivia shot back. "You'll never understand what it's like to struggle the way I have, to make the kind of choices I've had to make." "You're right," Nathan admitted, surprising her with his candor. "I won't ever fully understand your struggles, but I want to try. I want to learn about your world, Olivia, just as I want to share mine with you." He took another step toward her, close enough now that she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, could smell the subtle cologne that had lingered in her memory for months. "Give me a chance," he pleaded softly. "Not one night this time, but a real chance to see if what we felt was the beginning of something worth exploring." Olivia stood at a precipice, torn between self-preservation and the undeniable pull she felt toward this man who had upended her carefully ordered life. Could she trust these feelings? Could she trust him? "I've spent my entire adult life focused on survival," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to want things for myself anymore." "Then let me help you remember," Nathan replied, reaching for her hand. "No conditions, no arrangements, just two people seeing where this leads." His touch sent a current through her, awakening feelings she'd suppressed for too long. For years, Olivia had put her own desires aside, focusing solely on what her mother needed. Now, with Eleanor on the mend and her future suddenly wide open, was it so wrong to reach for something that might bring her joy? "I'm afraid," she admitted, the words catching in her throat. "Afraid that if I let myself care about you, if I let myself believe in this, it will all fall apart." "People leave, Nathan. They leave when things get hard." "Not everyone," he said, repeating the words he'd spoken that night. "Not me." In that moment, looking into his eyes, Olivia made a choice. Not for her mother, not for practical reasons, but for herself. For the possibility of happiness, she'd denied herself for too long. "One step at a time," she said cautiously. "No grand gestures, no interfering in my life without asking. Just normal. Can you do normal, Nathan Blackwood?" A genuine smile spread across his face, transforming his features. "For you, I can try." 6 months later, Olivia stood on the terrace of the Ocean View estate, watching the spring sunset paint the Atlantic in shades of pink and gold. Behind her, the sounds of laughter and conversation drifted through the open doors. Eleanor chatting animatedly with Dr. Patel about art therapy programs for chronically ill patients. Nathan's sister debating architectural styles with Olivia's former professor from Boston University. The past months had been a journey of rediscovery, of learning who Olivia Mason was beyond the roles of daughter and caretaker. With Eleanor's blessing, she had re-enrolled in the architecture program, this time with a focus on healthcare facility design. Her experiences had given her a unique perspective that her professors valued and encouraged. And then there was Nathan. True to his word, he had taken things slowly, allowing their relationship to develop naturally. There had been challenges, moments when their different backgrounds created misunderstandings, times when Olivia's fierce independence clashed with Nathan's instinct to solve problems with money. But through it all, the connection they'd discovered that night had only deepened, growing stronger with each honest conversation, each shared experience. "Penny for your thoughts," Nathan's voice broke through her reverie as he joined her at the terrace railing, handing her a glass of champagne. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Olivia replied, leaning into him as his arm circled her waist. "A year ago, I never could have imagined any of this." "Regrets?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability in the question. Olivia turned to face him, seeing beyond the wealthy exterior to the man she'd come to love, the brilliant mind, the generous heart, the quiet strength that complemented her own. Not one. In the distance, a ship's horn sounded, marking its departure from Belle Harbor, a fitting metaphor for Olivia's own journey from the constraints of her past to the expansive possibilities of her future. "Your foundation is making a real difference," she said, thinking of the patients who now had access to treatments they couldn't otherwise afford. "Mom's art therapy program for patients is thriving. Sometimes good things really do come from difficult beginnings." "The best things often do," Nathan agreed, his gaze intensifying as he set down his glass and took both her hands in his. "Olivia, there's something I need to ask you." Her heart quickened as he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "Nathan," she whispered, emotion catching in her throat. He dropped to one knee, the gesture both traditional and somehow new in its sincerity. "Olivia Mason, you've taught me what real connection means, what truly matters in life. I love you more than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" The ring inside the U box was stunning in its elegant simplicity, a single perfect diamond set in platinum, beautiful without being ostentatious. It reflected Olivia perfectly, showing how well Nathan had come to know her. Time seemed to stand still as Olivia looked from the ring to the man kneeling before her, a man who, despite all his wealth and power, had found his greatest treasure in the genuine love they shared. A year ago, she would have dismissed this moment as impossible, a fairy tale that couldn't exist in her world of struggle and sacrifice. Yet here she was, standing at the threshold of a future brighter than any she'd dared to imagine, not because Nathan had rescued her from hardship, but because together they had built something authentic and strong, a partnership of equals despite their different backgrounds. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and certain. Yes, I'll marry you. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to pull her into an embrace, Olivia knew they would face challenges ahead. The world would have opinions about their relationship, about the circumstances that had brought them together. But those external voices mattered less than the truth they both knew, that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most beautiful destinations. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her face alight with joy as she took in the scene before her. "I take it she said yes," she called, her voice stronger than it had been in years. Nathan turned, his arm still around Olivia's waist. She did. As the small gathering of friends and family spilled onto the terrace to congratulate them, Olivia found herself surrounded by a life she never could have predicted, a life built not on compromise or sacrifice, but on choice and love, and possibility. Later that night, as the guests departed and the estate grew quiet, Olivia and Nathan returned to the terrace, the moonlight now silvering the waves below. They stood in comfortable silence, his arms wrapped around her from behind, her head resting against his chest. "A year ago in this house, you told me one night was all you could give me," Nathan murmured, his lips close to her ear. "Now we have a lifetime ahead of us." Olivia smiled, turning in his arms to face him. "I was protecting myself then, afraid to want more, afraid to believe I deserved more. And now?" His eyes searched hers, still finding wonder in the journey that had brought them here. "Now I know that sometimes life offers unexpected gifts," she replied, echoing the words he'd once said to her, "and I'm brave enough to accept them." As their lips met in the moonlight, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the path ahead, however unpredictable, however challenging, was exactly where she was meant to be, not because fate had decreed it, or because circumstances had forced her hand, but because she had made the conscious choice to embrace love, to trust in possibilities, to build a future on her own terms. And in that choice, she had found her greatest strength. Epilogue. 2 years later, Olivia stood in the doorway of the newly completed Blackwood Center for Autoimmune Research and Treatment, watching as her mother guided a group of patients through an art therapy session in the EEC, sunlit atrium. The building, Olivia's first major architectural project since completing her degree, embodied everything she had dreamed of creating: spaces that promoted healing through light, nature, and thoughtful design. Eleanor had become something of a legend among the patients, her own recovery story inspiring those facing similar diagnoses. Her art therapy program, funded by the Blackwood Foundation but shaped entirely by her vision, had become an integral part of the treatment protocol. "Mrs. Blackwood," a voice called from behind her. Olivia turned to find Dr. Patel approaching, with a tablet in hand. Even after 2 years of marriage, the name still gave her a small thrill, not because of the status it conveyed, but because of the partnership it represented. "The preliminary results from the new treatment protocol are even better than we projected," Dr. Patel said, her face alight with professional satisfaction. "Patients are showing a 68% improvement rate compared to 42% with previous methods." "That's wonderful news," Olivia replied, genuine joy flooding through her. Every life improved by these treatments felt like a personal victory, a validation of the path she and Nathan had forged together. Behind Dr. Patel, the center's main doors opened, admitting Nathan and their 6-month-old daughter, Ellie, named for her grandmother. Nathan had taken to fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything in life, frequently bringing their daughter to visit the center, while Olivia oversaw the final construction details. As they approached, Olivia felt the familiar surge of love that still surprised her with its intensity. Nathan had kept his promise, learning to be normal in a relationship, supporting her dreams without taking over, building a life with her that honored both their strengths. "Daddy was showing me the butterflies in the healing garden," Nathan explained, handing their daughter to Olivia. Ellie immediately reached for her mother's necklace, a simple silver pendant that had been Nathan's gift on their first anniversary. "And what did you think of Mommy's garden?" Olivia asked, pressing a kiss to her daughter's soft cheek. "I think," "She's going to be an architect like her mother," Nathan replied proudly. She was definitely evaluating the structural integrity of those butterfly houses. As they walked together toward Eleanor's art therapy session, Nathan's arm around Olivia's waist, Ellie babbling happily in her arms, Olivia reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From a desperate arrangement born, of necessity, to a love that had transformed them both, their story had unfolded in ways neither could have predicted. "Penny for your thoughts?" Nathan asked, using the phrase that had become a gentle ritual between them. Olivia smiled up at him. This man who had once been a stranger, then an adversary, then a reluctant connection, and finally the love of her life. "Just thinking that sometimes the hardest roads lead to the most beautiful destinations, and the most unexpected proposals can lead to the most perfect acceptances," he added, kissing her temple softly. As they joined Eleanor's circle, becoming part of the community of healing they had helped create, Olivia knew that their story, with all its complications and challenges, had become something beautiful. Not a fairy tale of rescue, but a testament to resilience, to growth, to the transformative power of genuine connection. And in that knowledge, she found her greatest peace. The end of the story. Dear listeners, we hope Olivia and Nathan's journey has touched your heart as deeply as it has ours. Their story reminds us that sometimes life's most difficult challenges can lead to unexpected connections and profound transformations. If you've enjoyed this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories that explore the complexities of love, sacrifice, and redemption. You'll find it by clicking the link to your left. Did Olivia and Nathan's story move you? Show your support by subscribing to our channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Every day, we bring you unique narratives that delve into life's most profound questions and emotions. Don't miss our upcoming content. We have more powerful stories waiting to be shared with you. What did you think about Olivia's difficult choice? Would you have made the same decision? We'd love to hear